before, the conventional way of showing compassion was doing charity work, and a lot of charity work meant just doing handouts. Give things to people who need your help, money or food. And it went on for a long time. A lot of people did. Vivekananda did that. He was big time into seva. In Sanskrit it's called seva. It's to help. It means to sort of worship the divine in humanity and help them. And especially they chose the downtrodden, like Mother Teresa. She went to Calcutta and she found so many children abandoned on the streets. She took them in. Then she saw so many elderly abandoned on the streets, so she has her hospice services. So that was the traditional way of helping, and it helps, of course, it helps a lot, because there are people who are really down there who are going to die if they don't get that help. And then there's the next level of help. It's people who are not as down as the first layer of people. And humanity has evolved to a stage where some people have a basic amount of knowledge or some information. They go to school maybe 5 years, but that too helps a lot. So they have an idea of how to change their life, but they don't have the initial capital to do it. So second level of help is you provide that capital and let them decide what they want to do with their life. So you don't really give them any handout, you give them either know-how or the capital. And since they know their life circumstances better than you, that was quite a shift for a lot of people who had money. They thought they also had the information and the power. So they realized just having power and going to big schools and BA schools will not let you solve a simple problem that a person living in that region knows. That he just knows the soil and he knows what plants to plant. So your education may say such and such crop will grow here, but it doesn't, because that person who lives there knows it better. So okay, you give him the know-how, give him money. That was the second level of charity. Next level, they realized that too isn't enough. So if you're going to teach people to fish, first you give them fish, next level you teach them to fish, the third level you find out why the pond is poisoned. That too is a problem that they may not be able to solve, because it's a problem that's bigger than them. So a lot of this problem involved activism, talking to political leaders, and through journalism they socialized the problem, they took it to bigger forums, and then they brought back the pressure. So that was another level. And the next level they realized is not even to see the problem as us and them, they need our help, is to see that we are all here together and I need to help them, because there's something in me which is incomplete if I don't share my riches. My riches is incomplete if I don't share, and if I don't show them love, something within me is hungering for that sharing. So when they realized that part, it broke the cycle of what we understand as charity, conventional way of charity. So that brought in a wholeness. So we are all whole, we are one whole, and we are just playing different parts. So there are no winners and losers. We are just different players in the game. So I have some examples of people who realize that, and how they have realized that by helping, they're actually helping themselves, but they're helping their very deep self. So this brings me back to a discussion we had this morning about Yajnavalkya. He was like the maverick rishi of his time. So he is talking to his wife, Maitreyi. That's the conversation when he is giving her the knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Then there's a passage where he says, not for the sake of the husband do we love the husband, but for the sake of the self do we love the husband. And then he says, not for the sake of the wife do we love the wife, not for the sake of the child do we love the child, but for the sake of the self. Similarly, not for the sake of wealth do we love wealth, but for the sake of the self. And when he talked about self, he didn't mean the selfish self.
No.
He talked about the inner self, that self which is all self. So, and then he went on and he says, at the end, there's a whole passage where he takes a lot of things. Not for the sake of knowledge do we love knowledge, but for the sake of self do we love knowledge. Not for the sake of the Brahman, means the Lord, do we love the Lord, but for the sake of the self. So he's saying we and this Brahman are the same. And that is why we are intuitively drawn to loving all these things and all these people. And when we are living a selfish and isolated life, we feel extremely unhappy because intuitively we are not meant to be that kind of isolated person. So that kind of love is what we will see in some people's lives. And these people not necessarily are from spiritual paths, but they have stumbled upon this truth that I'm helping myself in the long run. And I'm not feeling unhappy that I'm helping my selfish self, because this self is bigger than the selfish self. It's huge. So first we'll see this. We'll see first a lady. Her name is Jessica Jackley. So she is famous for starting a company called Kiva.
Oh.
Kiva.org she started. And she is, Kiva does micro-lending. So the concept of micro-lending is you just give a small amount of capital to people who can kickstart their business with that capital, and then you don't have to put in any capital. That person will be able to continue the business. For example, you just pay for one goat, and then that goat brings milk. Goat will have a kid, and then the cycle goes on. They sell the kid, it's a small goat, and then they get more milk, and they get 2 goats, 3, 4, 5, and then that's how the business goes. So this lady, Jessica Jackley, tells about her journey.
I was starting to be friends and get to know their personal stories. And over again, as I interviewed them and spent my days with them, I did hear stories of life change and amazing little details of change. So I would hear from goat herders who had used that money that they had received to buy a few more goats, change, their business trajectory would change, they would make a little bit more money, the standard of living would shift and would get better, and they would make really interesting little adjustments in their lives, like they would start to send their children to school, they might be able to buy mosquito nets, maybe they could afford a lock for the door and feel secure. Maybe it was just that they could put sugar in their tea and offer that to me when I came as their guest, and that made them feel proud. But there were these beautiful details, even if I'd talked to 20 goat herders in a row, and some days that's what happened, but these beautiful details of life change that were meaningful to them. That was another thing that really touched me. It was very humbling to see for the first time, to really understand that even if I could have taken a magic wand and fixed everything, I probably would have gotten a lot wrong, because the best way for people to change their lives is for them to have control and to do that in the way that they believe is best for them. So I saw that and it was very humbling. Anyway, another interesting thing happened while I was there. I never once was asked for a donation, which had kind of been my mode, right? There's poverty, you give money to help. No one asked me for a donation. In fact, no one wanted me to feel bad for them at all. If anything, they just wanted to be able to do more of what they were doing already and to build on their own capabilities. So what I did hear once in a while was that people wanted a loan. And in that first year, October 05 through 06, Kiva facilitated $500,000 in loans. The second year, it was a total of 15 million. The third year, the total was up to around 40. The fourth year, we were just short of 100. And today, less than 5 years in, Kiva's facilitated more than $150 million in little $25 bits from lenders and entrepreneurs, more than 1 million of those collectively in 200 countries. So that's where Kiva is today, just to bring you right up to the present. And while those numbers and those statistics are really fun to talk about and they're interesting, to me, Kiva is really about stories. It's about retelling the story of the poor, and it's about giving ourselves an opportunity to engage that validates their dignity, validates a partnership relationship, not a relationship that's based on, the traditional sort of donor-beneficiary weirdness that can happen, but instead a relationship that can promote respect and hope and this optimism that together we can move forward. Imagine if you're speaking to somebody who's growing things and making them flourish. Somebody who's using their talents to do something productive. Somebody who's built their own business from scratch. Someone who is surrounded by abundance, not scarcity, who's in fact creating abundance. Somebody with full hands, with something to offer, not empty hands, asking for you to give them something. Imagine if you could hear a story that you didn't expect, of somebody who wakes up every day and works very, very hard to make their life better. These stories can really change the way that we think about each other. I don't think I need to stand here and convince you to care. I'm not even going to try. I don't think, even though we often hear the ethical and moral reasons, the religious reasons, here's why caring and giving will make you happier, I don't think we need to be convinced of that. I think we know. In fact, I think we know so much, and it's such a reality that we care so deeply, that in fact what usually stops us is that we're afraid to try and to mess up, because we care so very much about helping each other and being meaningful in each other's lives. So what I think I can do today, the best thing I can give you, I've given you my story, which is the best I can do. And I think I can remind us that we do care. I think we all already know that. And I think we know that love is resilient enough for us to get out there and try. Just a sec. Thanks. Thanks. For me, the best way to be inspired to try is to stop and to listen to someone else's story. And I'm grateful that I've gotten to do that here at TED. And I'm grateful that whenever I do that, guaranteed, I am inspired. I am inspired by the person that I'm listening to. And I believe more and more every time I listen in that person's potential to do great things in the world, and in my own potential to maybe help. And that, forget the tools, forget the moving around of resources, that stuff's easy. Believing in each other, really being sure when push comes to shove that each one of us can do amazing things in the world, that is what can make our stories into love stories and our collective story into one that continually perpetuates hope and good things for all of us. So that, this belief in each other, knowing that without a doubt, and practicing that every day in whatever you do, that's what I believe will change the world and make tomorrow better than today. Thank you.
And the next story is from somebody in India. There is an organization that loves Krishna. It's called International Sri Krishna Consciousness, and they have their headquarters in Bangalore. So this person was one of the heads of this place. And Krishna's story is, Krishna is there are lots of stories from different parts of Krishna's life. Krishna as a baby, Krishna as a teenager, Krishna as a king, as a spiritual master, and so on. So this story is about two kids who didn't have a mother, who had a very stepmother that treated them badly. So they had to cross a forest to go to school every day and then come back, and they were always hungry because they didn't have food. The mothers do not give them food. So the brother and sister were walking, and suddenly they meet a guy in the forest, and the man says, "You're hungry, right? Why don't you have this pot? I have a little bit of milk and rice in it. It's called a pudding, right? Rice pudding. Have some. Just keep it with you. And when you are hungry, just look inside it. You may find something." And these kids used to have that, and this bowl never ran out of food. And this person they had met, they didn't know it was Krishna himself. So this bowl is called Akshay Patra. So Akshay means infinite, but that which never diminishes, never withers out. And Patra is bowl. So when this person in ISKCON, Sri Krishna Consciousness, started his organization to feed children. So in India, there are millions of children who do not get food to eat, just like these two kids. And because they don't get food to eat, they have to go to work to get food. And since they go to work to get food, they can't go to school. So the whole cycle that binds them to poverty never gets broken. So what this person decided is all he would do is to feed the kids in school. So they would come to school. At first they started coming to school just to get that meal because they were always hungry. But then they realized, oh, school is fun, let's learn something. And then they realized that not only is school fun, this is the only future. This is the only way we can get out of our bind. So they come to school. And in this way, by feeding children just one meal a day for free, he has saved a whole generation. Millions of children are going to school and they're getting rid of the poverty their parents could not help them to get rid of. And he has made this difference, and this whole operation runs on charity, and it runs on such good administrative measures. The food is well prepared, and how it gets prepared in kitchens and how it gets distributed to different schools in vans on time has become one of the processes that business schools in America study.
Wow.
One of the Six Sigma processes.
Wow.
And they have this machinery is so well designed that recently, last year in March, when there was the earthquake in Nepal, before the government reacted, Akshay Patra was there feeding the people in the devastated country. They had set up their kitchens, and they knew how to make food from very little, because when you feed a child and you make bulk food, you don't have to spend a lot of money. It's just rice, dal, vegetables, which are cheap. But since you can provide them in good quality, there's clean water, it just improves the child's health.
Yes.
And when the child's health improves, the child's mind improves.
Yes.
And basically, starting from food, the whole cycle, mental health, emotional health, and the future is changed. So we'll see what inspired this person to start Akshay Patra.
ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಟೈಮ್ ನಾವು ಅನಿವಾರ್ಯ ಏನು ತಿಂಡಿ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಿರಲ್ಲ. ನಾವು ಹೋಗೋದು ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸದಿಂದ, ಅವರೆಲ್ಲಾದರೂ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಬೇಗ ಬಂದು ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿರ್ತಾರೆ.
ಊಟ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ.
In the year 2000, we began a simple program. Let's cook food and take them to the school and feed them in schools. Teachers reported that more children are showing up in the school than they were enrolled, and the children have become very energetic, very enthusiastic in the classroom and outside the classroom.
ಅಕ್ಷಯ ಪಾತ್ರೆ ಬಂದಾಗಿನಿಂದ ಮಕ್ಕಳೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಕೂಲಿಗೆ ಬಂದು ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದಾವು ಮತ್ತು ಸ್ಕೂಲಿನ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಸಂಖ್ಯೆನೂ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾವು.
So we have good management practices. We have enterprise resource planning. We have central procurement. We have a culture of innovation, ISO certification, periodic training of all the people involved in food safety and safe handling practices. In the year 2000, we began feeding 1,500 children in 5 schools. In 2001, we had set up our first large kitchen feeding 30,000 children in Bangalore city. By 2005, we had expanded the program to feed 300,000 children in 3 different states. By 2009, 1 million children in 7 states. And 2013, we had touched 1.3 million children in 9 states.
Education is the key to making sure that every citizen in this globe becomes a productive part of the economy. No child in this world should ever be deprived of education because of hunger.
ಅದು ಊಟ ಅಕ್ಷಯ ಪಾತ್ರ ಊಟ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಿದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಗ ಓದೋಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಾ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇರ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವನು ಈಗ BE ಮಾಡ್ತವನೆ ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರಿಂಗು.
ನಾನು ತುಂಬ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಡ್ಯಾಡಿ ಥರ ತೀರ್ಕೊಂಡವರು ಸುಮಾರು ಜನ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಜನರಲ್ಲಿ, ಅವರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಸಹಾಯ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನ್ನ ಗುರಿ. ನನ್ನ ಸ್ವಂತವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಹಾಸ್ಪಿಟಲ್ ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೋ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಜನಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾನು ಸೇವೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನನ್ನ ಇಚ್ಛೆ.
If all of us financially and professionally come together and help this organization, along with the state and the central governments of India, which provide the largest financial support, we can achieve the goal of serving 5 million children every day by 2020.
And being a charitable organization, we have our eyes fixed on the bottom line, and the bottom line is the children.
I want to become teacher. I want to become doctor.
Soldier.
I want to become police. Thank you, Akshay Patra.
Thank you, Akshay Patri.
Nice, wasn't it? Wonderful. So Deshpande, that's his name, is very famous now in India because he has created this enterprise that's not only moving so smoothly, but it also does so much good to people in India.
Who runs the enterprise? ISKCON or someone outside of it?
It's ISKCON.
It's ISKCON.
They have a foundation now. It started off with this, you know, the person who was wearing the white Chachalapati. He's from ISKCON. It was his brainchild. But now there's a foundation that runs it. It's called Akshay Patra Foundation. And they have their chapters all over the world. Like USA has its chapter. So they do fundraising for Akshay Patra in India. So the third one is, it's one of the organizations that received the Nobel Prize. Not all organizations receive, very few actually receive Nobel Prizes as organizations. So they received the Nobel Peace Prize. It's the Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières. So their story is amazing. These are doctors. Doctors are, they can make money wherever they are. They can have a very beautiful, like plush life. But these people have chosen to get out of their comfort zone and go into territory that's really dangerous for them. It's usually they are in borders, in not really borders, they're in conflict zones. So they have deliberately chosen to be in conflict zones where you need doctors the most, but it is the least safe for anyone to go and work there. And so many doctors, we hear in the news every other day, like a certain hospital in Afghanistan was blown by mistake or whatever. But these hospitals were set up by this organization that's not interested in politics, that's just interested to serve humanity. And so many of their doctors die, and yet they are there on the field. So what is it that drives them, if it is not something divine that's driving them?
Every year, more than 23,000 people for Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, or MSF, from around the world are committed to providing emergency medical care and relief supplies to millions of people in distress in nearly 65 countries. This is possible thanks to the financial support from more than 3 million individual donors worldwide. MSF is a private, non-profit humanitarian organization created in Paris in 1971 by a group of doctors and journalists. Now an international movement, MSF provides impartial help to people in need, without discrimination and independent of political powers. MSF teams provide medical assistance to people struggling to survive violence, epidemics, or natural disasters. Our work can lead us to speak out publicly.
I appeal here today to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Russia, and through him to President Yeltsin, to stop the bombing of defenseless civilians in Chechnya.
My guest today is head of Médecins Sans Frontières.
Through the media, we highlight a crisis people are facing, mobilize other aid organizations, or draw attention to flaws in the aid system.
So them getting it is even further away.
There are places the world has given up on.
Yes, we are going out. We will be the first car. Over.
I can offer no guarantee to my team that today or tomorrow a rocket will not be falling into the hospital.
I'm Vincent, a nurse. I joined MSF in 2012. I remember clearly when I was young, Someone told me that it's a blessing if you have the ability to help others. Since then, I've always wanted to make use of my knowledge and go to other less developed countries to help people there. I first heard of MSF in 1999 when they won the Nobel Peace Prize. I thought they were amazing when I found out that it wasn't just individuals who can get the award, it could be a group of people. From then on, I started to learn more about MSF. MSF operates in places where there are wars, natural disasters, lack of access to healthcare, and outbreaks of diseases. Apart from medical care on the front line, we also work on mental health and getting clean water and non-food supplies to people in need. We have patients coming to the hospital in very serious conditions, and we have to treat them with limited resources. Whenever I see patients being cured and going home in good health, I feel really happy. But I've also met patients who should not be seriously ill. If they were in a place with all its facilities, most of them would survive. But out here, resources are very limited. Some of them don't make it. I feel helpless and frustrated because it's not fair to them. If they were born in our place, these things would not happen. It's very important for me to go to the front line in person, not only to provide direct medical care, but also to pass on my knowledge to local people and to learn about their cultures and lifestyles.
My experience in South Sudan was very impactful. It's a beautiful country, a very hopeful country. Well, I was living in Nasir as the project coordinator of a primary health care project. As a volunteer in the field, each of us had our own tukul, or mud hut, with a straw roof. And we wake up every day with the sound of the wildlife around and the river nearby. But unfortunately, all too quickly, those sounds became replaced by gunshots and by fighting. There were several NGOs present prior to the outbreak of violence. We were the last organization to remain. In the end, we stayed as long as the population did. We evacuated along with the population, and we were able to bring all of our patients with us. To be the only provider of healthcare in a region for more than 3 months was certainly a challenge. But really our values as volunteers is to provide the best care we can for the patients, but also to be adaptable and flexible.
So I wanted to share that last week I went to a compassion conference, and that was organized by my company, which is a CRM company, Customer Relationship Management Company. But in its 4-day conference, one whole day was dedicated to compassion. And why did they do that? Because they have a program called 111. And this program is 1% of their profit is given out to charities. 1% of people, all the employees' times are given out to doing volunteer work. So there are like 24,000 employees, and 1% of that time is a lot. So each employee gets 7 days, 7 full days, 48 hours to go and work in whichever charity they like, 2 hours, 3 hours, and then throughout the year, in a year. Each employee gets 7 days. And the last one is 1% of their product, which is the CRM product, is given free to organizations that cannot afford to buy it. So this company spends a lot of money giving back to its community, giving back to the world. And this the CEO of the company has become so respected in the circle because of his activities as a person who cares for the community, that whatever he says has also weight it means it has a lot of value. It has more value than someone who has not proved himself in the field of compassion. So when he talks out against LGBT problems, or he's pro equal pay for women, it makes a lot of difference. So slowly, it has taken him 15 years to work through this and reach this point. But he's not alone. There's Microsoft Foundation, there's Zuckerberg Foundation, Facebook, Microsoft, Google has its own foundations. So all these companies that are making a lot of profit are giving back to their community. So people have questioned that, what is this model? Why not just keep all the profits and push it back, give it back to the business? That was the old model. You give it back to the business, or give bonuses to employees and let them be happy, and that's the old model. Then they say, no, that's a good model, but not what is really satisfying. Because employees, they've seen, want to give back to their community. So they're filling up a want that's more than a need. And that want is superior to the need. It makes a person a better person. And when they give back to the community realizes that we'd rather support this business rather than another business that's not giving back anything to the community. So they found out that people who are affluent in this country, in many countries where they're affluent, they are at a stage where they realize that it's not enough to be affluent alone. We want everyone in the world to be affluent. So a lot of money that they give back go to places like Africa and India. For example, one of their big charities that they were sponsoring this time, every year they have a different charity. So this time they were sponsoring a charity that works for eradicating HIV in Africa. So sub-Saharan Africa is the place that has most cases of children being born with HIV because their mothers were HIV positive. So there is a pill that you just give one pill per day, which the pill costs 30 cents. You give the mother for 9 months plus the 6 months that she's feeding. Then the child is born without HIV and the child can live. Otherwise, children were dying in infancy or early childhood. So 30 cents per day for 9 plus 6 months is $138. Is that a lot, we asked? No. So people just came and started giving money. And they have saved millions of children already. And the founder of this organization, it's called Global Fund. He had come. He was a doctor. And his name is Mark DeBull. He was a gay doctor he's a gay doctor in America, and he went through this sort of discrimination. So he took it upon himself that he's going to fight for people who are not recognized, the sort of invisible people. And who are these invisible people? Women in Africa are not registered at birth because they're not real people. They're not registered at birth. So all the big data that the all the companies, now everything runs through big data, right? Crowdsourcing data. So a person who is not registered cannot own property because there's no name, there's no registration. This person cannot go to school because she has to work at home and feed her brothers who are going to school. And this person can never have a life of her own. She's just going to get married early, and this cycle was never being broken. So what they did is, a lot of these girls are hungering to study. They said, why can't I be like my brother? I want to study. They said, earn your own money. So they were going into prostitution to earn their own money. And that's where they were getting AIDS. So a lot of the beneficiaries of this fund is women who are not registered, who have AIDS and who have early pregnancies. So he's trying to help these kind of people. And when he was on stage, and Nancy Pelosi, who's our representative, Democrat, she was there too, and she apparently she has done a lot of work on AIDS too, HIV. And she introduced all her colleagues. There were other doctors, black, gay, everyone in this marginal society. So because they had their journeys, and because of their journeys, they are where they are. And this guy said, he's a doctor who works for HIV, malaria, tuberculosis. And he said all these diseases have something in common. They affect populations that are poor, who have poor sanitation and poor housing, and also they are immigrant populations, so they have to, sometimes they are refugees too. And he says, why are these populations affected? Because they are the ones that are loved the least by the rest of the people. So the problem is not germs, the problem is lack of compassion. And this guy who caught it was such a moment that he caught it. He said that you want to solve the problem, it's not medicines. You have to welcome them, love them, and embrace them. That's the solution. So I was thinking that a company that makes money has hosted this conference which brings such people who can talk about such things. So business is changing, right? The thought process in business is changing. And then that was just one person, one talk. Another day they got a guy who started something called Wisdom Labs. It's right here in San Francisco. And he used to work in Google, and he was one of the good workers, made money, everything, but restless. And this is not enough. I need to do something more with my life, something more meaningful. So he walked out from Google and he started Wisdom Labs. So they have this program to teach leadership in businesses to be more compassionate. So they teach compassionate leadership. And they have their coaching programs, and they have compassionate parenting. They have classes where business people come and go through their program, and they remain in touch so that they get coaching. And this is his line of business, and it's thriving. So just the fact that this kind of business is thriving is very encouraging. And he was the anchor to bring other people. So they brought out of the 3 devotees we know of Baba in India. His name is Neem Karoli Baba. You may have heard of him. He is no more now. But he had disciples like Ram Das. Then 2 of his disciples were there. One is Larry Brilliant. He's a doctor who worked he actually eradicated smallpox. He worked in India and Delhi and those places, in the ghettos of Jamshedpur. So he worked there. Then he worked to remove blindness, tuberculosis, lot of work, very good work. And then there was Daniel Goleman.
We know him.
Daniel Goleman is famous for emotional intelligence. So all this I am saying because what really brought me in this path, and that's why when Dakshina says, what do you want to say for OM this year? If there's a topic, I wanted to say something related to emotional intelligence. So that's something that they realized that it's not enough to have IQ, intelligent quotient. You need something called EQ, emotional quotient. And what is it? It's kind of inner maturity, the maturity to help, to understand that you are not alone in this world, that you want to be compassionate. And this actually starts from early childhood. And a lot of these experiments, so these are also doctors, like these people like Larry Brilliant, they're doctors, so they work with numbers, and that's fine, they work with numbers. But the happy fact is that now the numbers are proving the other stuff too. So it's okay, you use numbers. But so they took little kids, kindergarten kids, and they gave them a bunch of marshmallows. There was one, right, the marshmallow experiment, and there was some cookies and stuff. And they told the kids that you can either have a marshmallow now or you wait. Instructor will go out, and when he comes in, you can have 2, and you can have a cookie. So then they put cameras and they checked what the children were doing, and some of them really came close, touched it, smelled it, but remained. And some of them couldn't hold on, so they had the marshmallow. And then the instructor comes back 15 minutes later, and they just note down who did what. And they follow these kids through high school till the time they get jobs. And they found the kids who delayed gratification were with higher emotional quotient. So they have a capacity that other kids didn't have. So they had the capacity to empathize. And that capacity took them through, and they said they were more rounded people, and wherever they went, they performed better. Because even if they were not as intelligent, but they were better performers, because for being a successful performer in life, you don't have to be completely intelligent. You have to be well-rounded. So all the statistics are together. So now they try to bring in corporates to prove that, if you invest money in emotional intelligence, then what happens to your employees? So they showed that there's a part of the brain called amygdala and all that, and that becomes bigger, and brain fall this and that. They have all these nice brain chemistry, and that's all catchy stuff, which is all true. But at least through these tools, they have been able to bring in a lot of corporates, and now there are companies that have emotional intelligence in their training programs. There are schools where at least one class of emotional intelligence is incorporated. And there was a doctor also who came. She was her name is Nadine Burke Harris. She works in a depressed community in San Francisco, Bay's View. So she gets a lot of children with ADHD and attention deficiency. They're bad performers in school. So she also found that these children are from communities, black, very poor communities, Latino communities. Parents are unstable. Sometimes they don't even know their father. Some parents are in jail. So they have very difficult childhood. So these are called adverse childhood experiences. So the more adverse childhood experiences the child picks up, the worse he is as a performer. He is not being able to concentrate on studies. And then it has a long-term effect that their hearts are weaker, they get heart diseases, their immune system is weaker, they have more problems, and then they get cancer faster because of all these issues. So they traced it to the first few years of childhood. So they realized how important those years are, and it's nothing to do with germs, it's just to do with human interaction. And so they say that if the parents themselves are bullies, so you have this flight and fight mechanism that causes stress hormones to get released, that's getting pumped out from the child's brain again and again, and the child doesn't know where to run because his parents are the ones who are both taking care or supposed to take care and also the bullies. So she's trying to come up with this comprehensive program to treat childhood problems, which is a program that treats emotional problems, and she's trying to make the community more mindful. So they have meditation sessions. So it's very interesting how spirituality has found a back door, and through data, through big data actually, they have found that it makes sense to be more spiritual. So I won't be surprised very soon if they're starting to use the word spiritual also. Right now it's emotional intelligence, but soon it will be spiritual. So the last thing I have is, it's actually one of the most difficult acts of compassion that I have come across in public media. So I wanted to share it.
This morning, we have the heartbreaking story of a man who lost his son to gang violence 14 years ago, yet somehow found the ability to forgive.
He was a great soul, wise, charismatic, good-looking.
Azim Khamisa's 20-year-old son Tariq had everything to live for.
Tariq had a beautiful girlfriend, Jennifer, and they had plans to get married. He was a student at San Diego State University, and he worked Fridays and Saturdays as a pizza delivery man.
But everything changed on January 21st, 1995.
I called the detective, and they told me on the telephone, and I didn't believe them, because that didn't make any sense that Tariq was shot and killed. And I remember after Tariq died that it literally took all of my willpower just to climb out of bed.
Tariq was killed in a gang shooting. The gunman was just 14 years old.
I shot and killed Tariq Khamisa, a person I didn't even know and who didn't do anything wrong to me.
So what I saw in this tragedy was that my son was a victim of the 14-year-old gang member, and that 14-year-old gang member was victim of society. We've created this society. So I felt as an American I must take my share of the responsibility for the bullet that took my son's life. I'm Azim Khamisa, and I forgave my son's killer.
Azim Khamisa has written a book called The Secrets of the Bulletproof Spirit, How to Bounce Back from Life's Hardest Hits. Sir, good morning.
Good morning.
How long did it take you to forgive your son's killer?
It was immediate. I remember when I got the news that it was so painful. I believe in God, and it was so painful I couldn't even be in my body. It was my first out-of-body experience, and I believe I went into the loving arms of God, and He held me in an embrace for the longest time. When the explosion subsided, I came back to my body with the wisdom that there were victims at both ends of the gun.
Explain how you did it, because in your book you write about the 3 milestones you must go through to reach forgiveness. What is the first milestone?
The first milestone is to acknowledge that you've been wrong. In the book, we talk about how to do that. There's a grieving process that you have to go through. The second piece, which is a milestone, is you have to give up all the resulting resentment. Mandela didn't write this quote, but he made it famous. He said that resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for your enemy to die.
What a great quote.
Exactly. And you think about it, why have such important real estate of your psyche occupied by somebody who's hurt you? Why not forgive and release that real estate so love and joy can live there?
And what is the third milestone?
And the third milestone is to reach out to the offender with love and compassion. Not all of us have to reach out to the family of our son's killer or to our child's killer. Very often the issues are divorce, business partners, all kinds of situations in our society that you can reach out and forgive, but do it with love and compassion. And we talk about it in the book. In the book there are 4 separate chapters where we deal with the issue about how to forgive.
And you did that when you came face to face with your son's killer in prison. When was that, and what was that face-to-face meeting like?
I met him 5 years after the tragedy, and it took many hours of meditation because you don't know how you're going to react when you come eyeball to eyeball with your child's killer. And I was sitting to him closer than I am to you, Julie, and I remember looking into his eyes for a very long time, trying to find a murderer in him. But I didn't see a murderer in him. I looked in his eyes and I saw another soul, much like me, much like you. And in fact, I just, around Father's Day, he just read, we communicate by letter because it takes a long time to go to him. But this letter, I thought I might bring it because really he didn't have a father. He was born to a 15-year-old, and I have kind of taken the father role to him. And he says, I'm ultimately writing you now to wish you a happy Father's Day.
Wow. Out of all this tragedy, you created something wonderful, a foundation in your son's name. You left behind your successful career as an international investment banker. Tell me about the purpose of the foundation.
The foundation's mission statement is to break the cycle of youth violence by saving lives, empowering kids, and teaching peace. The foundation is named after my son. It's called the Tariq Khamisa Foundation. We've been at it for about 13 years. We bring our message to schools. We have 6 programs, and we have reached over 8 million kids in this 13 years. We're successfully keeping kids away from gangs, guns, and violence by teaching the principles of nonviolence, forgiveness, and peacemaking. We have over 100,000 letters that have come in, from the kids.
In the final moments, your son's killer is still behind bars. He's up for parole in 2027. If he gets out, he will be in his 40s. Will you be there for him?
Absolutely. I actually offered him a job when I met him, which was 5 years after. I forgave him, but I also offered him a job and told him when you come out, you have a job at the foundation. And we look forward to the day when he can join us, because I know that he would save many more lives. We've saved him. But think about how many more lives he will save when he's on stage with his grandfather, who is my partner in this tragedy.
Azim Khamisa, you have an incredible story to tell. We thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also wanted to just add that we have a wonderful website, which is www.bulletproofspirit.com, where you can meet me and you can meet also my co-author, Gillian Quinn. Okay. And we have a lot of resources there for your viewers to go in and go through the process of how to bounce back from having a hard hit. And thank you for being
You're welcome. You're so welcome.
And there's so many resources like Wisdom Labs. That person who started Wisdom Labs, he's a very, if you go to his talks, it's a beautiful talk, and you can see that they are not the run-of-the-mill businessmen. They have become different. They're bridging the gap. They have become spiritual beings, or people who are graced by spirituality, and how they're reaching out to people. And because they have reached a certain level, like Zuckerberg and the CEO of my company, his name is Mark Benioff. Whenever there is a big movement like a shootout somewhere, a depressed person is against LGBT or against women or against immigrants, against Muslims, they're always speaking out, and they are always for harmony, for love, for compassion. So their voice is not the political voice. They're not saying they're not always abusing each other. They're just there to facilitate compassion. And because they have money and they have the platform, they got thousands of, so many millions of people came to listen to these talks that I'm talking about, the conference I went to. And people were so moved. And at the end, the last part of the conference was this group from Thich Nhat Hanh. There were some maybe 40 chanters were there, and they sang the song that Linda was talking about. And in this whole conference, it was in Moscone Center, one room was called the mindfulness room. Oh. So they stayed there, and they put a picture of bamboo, and they created waterfalls. Oh. It was a quiet haven from the conference that was going on, and mats, little cushions to sit on, and you could go meditate. And there was this ancient lady. She was there during Thich Nhat Hanh's time in Vietnam, and then she came with him to France. Then she came here, and she was giving this mindfulness talks, and very simple and beautiful. So their concept is very much like, be a compassionate listener. At the end of the day, go and keep your cell phone, whatever electronic gadgets you have, all your thoughts or your worries, leave them outside the room, go to the room, and whoever is with you, just hold their hands and just say, I'm available. That's all. You want to say something? I'm listening. So just give the gift of listening to people. And then they say at the end of the day, what are you worried about? Is it your life? Is it your... life we know will come and go. And is it your money? That too will come and go. Is it your reputation? That too will come and... At the end of the day, you realize that there's nothing really to worry about. This is so, with all the space inside you, when you don't worry, fill it with happiness. And fill it with love and giving. And so you see their mindset, and you feel the peace, and say, oh, this is what they call mindfulness, to be in that state. So it was a very positive conference. And Zuckerberg has created hospitals. Mark Benioff has hospitals. Then Melinda Gates was there, and their foundation is doing such good work.
In terms of a transformation, I mean, if you ever saw a film of Bill Gates when he was being sued, and he was like autistic, rocking, completely unable to function in the courtroom. This is a long time ago when he was being sued. And now see him with his wife and the foundation, and he talks about what happened to him in Africa when he kind of had a transformational event. I have never in my life seen the difference vibrationally between the Bill Gates of those business days and the Bill Gates. It's truly one of those stranger than, I mean, one couldn't have talk about not being able to predict a transformation. Astounding.
The force is working, so we feel it. Yeah. And we were reading the agenda. There the mother says, she tells Satprem that all this I'm talking is far out in the future, but a time will come when people will pick this up and they will understand what I'm saying. And I think now it's the time. And Oromer also has this program of giving back, right? Your profits.
Yeah,
some amount
we
of
do. 10% of our profits goes to Oroville for the Acres for Oroville. At the moment, that's where we're designating it to go to purchasing lands for Oroville, and then we have on our incense additional 25% of the profits on our incense goes to a small integral school in Ichapur, which is a very tiny village in Orissa, one of the poorest areas in India, and so to support integral education there. So yeah, we committed to do that. It's not easy to meet our commitment also. I sometimes have to borrow money to meet the commitment, but we do it.
Melinda Gates was saying that millions of dollars are wasted, charity dollars, because of this problem. Management doesn't know where to spend it, and they spend it in the wrong places, or they give it to people who just take it away. There's a lot of
corruption.
It doesn't reach the right people. But there was one more lady who had come in the conference. She's from India. Her name is Laila Jana. She started a company called Sama. Sama means equality, right? Sama.org or .com. So it's a very interesting concept. So she found that India was as poor as Africa sometime back, but it is not right now. So what made the difference? So she found out it's because Indians have education and they have gotten onto the digital bandwagon. So she said Africa couldn't do that. So a lot of money that comes to India is from outsourcing and simple work like call center work, but they do the back office processing of in the digital economy. So she took part of that work and brought it to Africa, and there are people, she was saying, who go to school, they know English and they are educated, but since there is no job in their local place, what they do is they wade through swamps which are muddy and full of germs and dirt. They wade through swamps and they pick out pieces of metal and they recycle. They get money. They sell it to a recycler and they get money. And these are educated people, so they are so frustrated. So this is the place, this is the kind of person who goes into a gang.
Yes.
Because he is frustrated.
Right.
He is living much below his capacities. So she went to such places and she created internet cafes. And they come there, and there's a lot of work where you need human eyes and just human interaction. But it's very simple. So, for example, a self-driving car takes pictures. When it's going, it's taking pictures all around. But a car doesn't know what's a human and what's not a human, what's another machine or what's a poster. So they take all these pictures, thousands and thousands of pictures, and humans have to tag these. So they have to go around the contours of a human and they say person, 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 person. Then they have to go contours and car, 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 car. Then jeep, truck, door, window, sky, cloud. That's all. They have to just tag it. So, and then the computer will take these tags and they would know, okay, a cloud is this. So the computer is learning, and it's called machine learning. But the initial job has to be done by a person. So it's a very simple job, but they can sit in a clean office and they get paid much better than the kind of work he was like wading through dirt. And now he has become an instructor to teach others to use computers and do the same kind of work. And there's always going to be a pipeline of this kind of work where you need humans. As it becomes the IoT, the Internet of Things, it's happening, but the initial work has to be done by humans because actual intelligence is there. And then machines will learn. And then she says that it's a myth in the West or in an affluent society we have that only we can use electronic gadgets. So the mind knows how to use gadgets because now most of the programs have become more and more intuitive.
Right.
So that anyone who just learns the basics of click and point and pinch can use these. So that it was so easy to teach these people who already know some language, they have language skills. So that that economy turned up, and she has made a difference in so many people's lives. And she was maybe my age or younger. I was like surprised. "Oh, here's an Indian girl who did it."
Very
so
lovely.
she was beautiful, wonderful talk.
Is she on TED Talk, do you think? I bet.
Laila Jana, maybe she is.
Yeah, we should look her up.
Look her up,
Yeah,
Laila
yeah.
Jana,
Laila
Sama.com.
Okay.
And she has another product now, she calls it Lakshmi.
Oh.
It's Lakshmi product is also very good. She saw women, again women in Africa are really in a bad state. So she found a sort of nut that they have, it's a butter kind of nut which has a lot of good butter. So they were just throwing these nuts away, so she found out there's, you collect the butter in the nut and you can make a sort of skin product. It's a natural skin product, and it's a beauty product, and you get it from Africa, that particular region where this nut grows. So a lot of women have started doing that Lakshmi.
Wonderful.
So she has these two big projects in Africa. Indian girl born in the US goes and helps Africa. This is so nice.
Very
Right?
nice.
And the product, this thing is called Sama, which is equality. So her thing is to bring equality. The rich and poor, they have to be equal. Very nice.
Well, we were to focus on our hearts today, but we received a lot in our hearts today. This is very nourishing to see people being helped in a holistic way.
And so many things were sad also. Like during the conference, I was crying so often. For example, when they said women in Africa are non-entities because they are not registered, and they are told if you want an education, you have to get into prostitution. It was so sad.
Yeah,
that was sad.
That was hard when you
but
said
then
it.
when you hear the story that the same women are helped and millions of them, then also you cry because you're so happy.
Yeah, right.
You were so sad for them, now you're so happy for them. So such beautiful stories. And this lady who's a pediatrician, she's a doctor in Bayview Clinic in San Francisco. She was amazing because she talked about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that she's been studying for a while, and she saw things like divorce going on in the family, or parents being abusive, one parent in jail, or they're taking drugs, alcohol, or father beating mother. So these things, you think the child doesn't see or hear or understand, but children have this nervous system which is not shut down. So they are actually taking in the vibrations, whatever vibration is circulating in the room, they are taking in, and it's getting stored somewhere as memories in the subconscious. And in dreams, later, much later in life also, they come out in dreams and they torture the person. And because of those subconscious problems, the brain itself is always in the state of sending signals saying that you are unsafe. This environment is unsafe. So she gave the example that if you are walking, like Leonardo DiCaprio got attacked by a bear in The Revenant or something. So you have we have these 4 F's that we have in our body, which is like survival, flight, fight, feed, and reproduce. So that's what they say, the 4 basic F's that we have. So from there, the fight and flight are always getting triggered for these children. Usually it happens when we see a grave danger to life, like a bear. So what you do is either you fight it or you fight. So you have this adrenaline that gets secreted in the brain, which is not a good chemical.
No.
But it helps you survive. But if that happens every day and that bear is in the house, then that child stops talking, and that child doesn't even know whom to trust. And that thing carries forward. When the child goes to school, he doesn't know if he should trust his teachers, if he should trust the other kids. Everything is like a wall. So they send this child to this pediatrician, this doctor who was there, And they say, oh, this is a problem child, cure her. And she asks, what she did is, she said that all I did was, I was a compassionate listener. These children don't even have a listener. So all she did is just said, tell me your story. How are things at home? How are things at this and that? And the children found her, she's not forcing them for time or for a story. So they started telling, and she started crying on stage. She said their stories were so heartrending, and these are children who haven't seen anything better. But then she told these kids that all these problems you have, that you cannot concentrate in school, that you are always fighting with your friends, it's not because you are a bad person. Everyone used to tell them, you are a bad person, you are a bully, you are a fighter. But no, it's because your body is conditioned to attack. Because in your childhood, you didn't find, nobody treated you well. So these kids, just the fact that it's not them, it's so relieving. So it's like somebody has just opened a door ajar on them and said, walk. And they just like, is it true that's not me? And that moment, she said that when I relieved that moment, I just cried. That I just saved a person's life without medicines. And just the knowledge, it's true, it's possible that that person will still struggle maybe a lot of his life, but now he has the knowledge that it's not me, it's my childhood aces that I have picked up. And so then he can turn around. So in their mindfulness training, they say that these memories you have in you are going to remain. Nobody can wipe out memories. People are trying to find a drug for PTSD especially because it's good because the memory is triggering the stress, PTSD, like post-traumatic stress disorder. They try to put the memory, but the brain is so clever. It doesn't have localized memory. It's all over the place. So you can dumb a sort of put anesthesia in a part of the brain. It will trigger from somewhere else. So they can't solve that problem. So they said, let's not solve that problem. Let's solve it the right way. So they look at the trauma, they face it, and then they tell themselves that it wasn't my problem. Somebody else did it to me, so I should not attack others just because somebody else did it to me. And what's interesting, when we were reading the agenda, mother says that when she was 5 years old, she used to have a stool for a child, and she used to go and sit in that stool, like her mindfulness time in a room, and she used to go sit there when there was a fight in school and some kids beat her up. So she used to go sit there and she had no one to talk to. She said when she used to tell her mother, a 5-year-old child comes and complains to her mother that someone beat me up, and the mother used to always turn on her and say, it must be something you did.
Right.
And the mother used to scold her all the time. So by 5, she has shut out her mother from her personal problems. And he said that my father was always laughing at things. He didn't have patience. He wasn't a listener. So she couldn't do that also. So all she could do is go to that stool. And her brother was also a child. He couldn't help. So she used to go and sit in that stool and just think what happened. She used to face the problem. And then she used to tell herself, but that person was mean and did something bad to me. I didn't do anything bad, so why am I sad? So she used to ask her, why am I suffering? It's that person who should suffer. So she used to rationalize that way, and she used to say how the suffering is to go. And that's what now they're teaching in schools, mindfulness
amazing?
schools.
My goodness.
I've seen mother solve it when she was 5 years old, on her own. Now schools, after like 100 years, they're teaching. They have manuals you can download from their websites. They have standards as to how to teach. And they teach how you should look at these traumas that you have, past trauma, and sort of have a conversation with that trauma. And I mean, the last thing is if you can forgive that thing inside you and say that, yes, I have this problem, but I'm going to forgive it. I can't forget, but I'll forgive and move on.